Let's just start off with the fact that the central bank has actually come out and requested that you issue bonus shares, and this is obviously going to impact your capitalisation requirements. Give us an indication of where you stand right now, because from my understanding that you were already well capitalised to meet a lot of the requirements that the central bank had put in place.
Well, that's correct, and thank you for having me on your show. Zanaco is indeed the highest capitalized bank in Zambia at the present time. We are well able to meet the new minimum capital requirements for banks in Zambia. We are a Zambian-owned bank with majority Zambian ownership of our shares. Nonetheless, we are pleased to be able to conform with the requirements for the minimum for foreign-owned banks in Zambia, which is $100 million. We're over $100 million in our capitalization at the present time once we issued the bonus shares.
So, Martyn, then could you give us a reason why as to why the central bank actually came out and requested that you do this, given the fact that, as you mentioned, you are the most highly capitalized bank in Zambia?
Well, it's a requirement not just for Zanaco, it's a requirement for all commercial banks in Zambia at present. The government, through the central bank policies, has requested that all banks operating in Zambia, both domestic and foreign banks, increase their minimum capital. It has gone for local banks from 2.5 million minimum to $20 million minimum, and for foreign banks from 2.5 million to 100 million minimum. So everyone is facing this new requirement, and we're pleased to be able to conform with that already almost today, even though all banks have until the end of the year to meet those minimum standards. The feeling has been that banks need to ensure that they are strong, meaningful players for the Zambian economy, allowing their strong capital base to be the focus, to be the base for further lending to the Zambian economy and allowing the economy to grow as per plans.
And of course, you are converting share premium reserves into bonus shares, only issuing 7.5 billion new ordinary shares, essentially. We know that the likes of share premium reserves are an item on the balance sheet and can be used in various forms and can actually be used to also write off equity-related expenses and the like. You have a lot of use for them because the share premium reserves in your stable currently stand at around 78 or so, 78 billion. What are you going to do with the rest of those reserves?
Well, you're absolutely right. This is the exact purpose for such a reserve. We will utilize almost all of that reserve. We'll have another 2.5 billion kwacha remaining on that reserve for future necessities. But we're very pleased that this reserve buildup in the course of time can be used for exactly the types of purposes for which it was created.
Okay, so give us an indication of also the investors out there and the shareholders. We know the shareholders have approved this, so it seems that there is overall consensus on the issuing of new shares. Some would say that this actually dilutes the shareholder, but a very different scenario that's playing out here.
No, I think that's absolutely correct. We had our annual general meeting last Friday, and we're pleased to receive approval from shareholders for this bonus issue. I think that Zanaco, even after this issuance of new bonus shares, which makes no difference obviously to the valuation held by each individual shareholder. They get more shares, but the value of the shares are actually proportionately less. So the value held by each shareholder is unchanged. It may provide for increased liquidity in our shares. Zanaco stock has been fortunately well liked in the past, and the float itself is quite minimal. It's quite illiquid, and therefore there may be some investors, potentially retail investors, who look at new numbers of shares in their portfolio, even though worth less, and they may wish to start selling those to meet international demand.
So, Martyn, if you could also give us an indication of what your thoughts are with regards to the monetary policy rate decision, bringing rates to 9%, and also just focusing on targeting inflation, despite the fact that inflation has been in single digits in Zambia for quite some time. How's this going to impact the overall banking environment? I'm sure the rate at which you lend money to the consumers is far higher than the 9% that I'm talking about.
That's correct. We have a base rate at 16% at present, and that's the average of commercial banks in the market prior to the announcement of the central bank's policy rate. We welcome the central bank's announcement for the policy rate. I think it will give good insight into their expectations for inflation and exchange rate changes, if any. And this will allow international investors, but also banks, to have a good prognosis on how they intend to what goes into the way in which they compose their policy rate. There is still clearly a difference between a policy rate for the central bank and the final rate that clients and customers will be charged by the bank, because the policy rate is a monetary rate which indicates monetary policy and has, in that regard, little to do with the final rate charged to customers, because that includes a credit risk premium, which banks will determine on a case-by-case basis, depending on which borrower would like to borrow from us. So we look forward to this as increased transparency overall. It gives a good indication for monetary policy going forward, and clearly the banks will need to be guided by the direction in which the central bank believes that the economic development is going, and therefore also that will have an impact on overall interest rates, including lending rates, although there is not a direct one-to-one impact.